They work
Like,
for
are you kidding me?
national fisheries for NOAA, and they're like coastal policy people. You know? So they love it. Plus they have a boat.
You can have
Makes life easy.
like that. That's something just.
But yeah, well, that's great. So you like Glacier Bay too? You get into Glacier Bay?
We did, yes, we didn't get to see.
The
it.
weather was kind of late. Yeah. Yeah, we used to fly. I used to fly from Juneau over to Gustavus, which is the little settlement. You go into Glacier Bay and they have the full camps to Skagway and the Thames and over to Juneau. It's all weather. It's like when you go up to see Denali in the interior, half the time you can't see it because the clouds are just. It's like, yeah, it's amazing to get in and around there. So fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
What cruise line did you run? Which one?
all in America.
You like that? Was it good? Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been on a
I've never been to
cruise.
cruise either. I've done
I don't know
State
how to
Ferry.
compare it.
Yeah, the Alaska State Ferry is pretty good at Southeast, but not like a cruise line.
Yeah.
But no, it's cool. That's good.
Yes,
Excellent. So how long? 5 days?
it was 7.
7, yeah.
Yeah, it was a week.
You did get off the boat at Ketchikan?
Yeah.
Boy, it's crazy how many people spill off the boats there. It's like,
Ketchikan.
whoa, it's so narrow right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the airport master plan some years ago at Ketchikan.
Okay.
And it was, the airport isn't that old. They built it in 1970. And before that, Ketchikan didn't have an airport. They flew down to Annette Island, which was an old Coast Guard air station. And it's still there. But they built the airport in the early 70s. And I did one of the master plans in the late 80s, but it was, and I did their float plane basin planning. So all those seaplanes that are zipping around.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw several.
Oh, it's, I like spending time up there.
Yeah,
That's good. I'm glad you had fun.
yeah, it was fun.
Very nice. Are you becoming like a cruise devotee or on your next
Oh,
adventure?
about that, yes.
It becomes a lifestyle for some people.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
You got the money for it.
Yes, yeah, it's heavy off the lift, yeah.
It's kind of a once in a lifetime thing.
Good. Excellent. That was good.
Yeah, I'd much rather go up there than go to the south. I'm not interested in the heat.
Yeah.
Beach and.
Ever caught a boat out of Galveston to go somewhere down south, down through the creek or the Gulf or anywhere?
Lots of friends that do.
Okay, look. Okay, somebody's gonna be late, but it's not me.
Yeah.
Sorry. Didn't want you to get scolded by the mayor. And I got it. Done.
Yeah, a hammer somewhere around here. Good evening. Welcome to the September 3rd, 2024 regular city council meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Goodlow.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call the roll.
Goodlow. Here. Elliott.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Palmer.
Here.
Thompson.
We have no proclamations, awards, recognitions, so we will move to item 4, approval of the agenda.
I will move for the approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion second for the approval of the agenda as presented. We do not need to make a special consideration for the item 11 with the extra, or do we?
It was as amended.
As amended.
It was
Okay.
amended today.
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay,
All right.
gotcha.
So
So is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 6A, page 161 in the packet, board and commission reappointments. This is an opportunity for public comment.
All right. Good evening, Council. Heidi Barron Sternaway, City Manager. You have in your packet a recommendation from a subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Commission to reappoint 2 members, Nikki Pollock and Fran Milan. I don't believe either of them are here tonight. And again, you can do this in one motion.
Council?
Moving for the recommendation of appointment of Franna Millen and Nikki Polak for Parks and Rec Commission.
Second.
Good.
So we have motion
Mayor,
second.
did you want to offer any public comment on this?
Oh, absolutely. Any public comment on reappointment? Sorry. Yes, good point. Hearing none, excuse me. So we have a motion second for reappointment of Franna Milan and Nikki Pollock to Parks and Recreation Committee. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 6B, we have County Auditor Elliott with an update on election process, and there will be an opportunity for public comment. Good, 45 minutes?
55. Yeah. Just for once. Okay. Here. That goes away. Oh, yeah. It'll go away at some point. Uh-oh. What do I do? Hold on. There we go. And that's how we do that. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Hey, City Council members of the public. Thanks for having me tonight. Brian Elliott, County Auditor. This is a version of a presentation that I do. I say that because the standard presentation is Elections 101. I usually give it to like high schools, colleges, rotaries. It's about an hour long. In respect for everybody's time tonight, I kind of wanted to focus in on just a few key points and then really open it up to questions and dialogue and discussion. So, but this is about how the elections process works in Kittitas County. And I think it's pretty timely, obviously, we're in a busy election year, and a lot of people have questions about how elections work. And so this is a good opportunity to kind of get out there. And so I appreciate everybody for your time tonight. So I always like to start every presentation I do like this with the elections triad. So this is like a play on like the project management, like work time resources, right? There's never enough and they're always pulling against each other. Well, it's the same thing with elections too. So you have security, transparency, and accessibility. And security obviously being the holistic security of the process from start to finish. You've got the transparency where we're maximizing opportunities for the public to come and engage and watch that process, that public accountability, and then accessibility, which is every legal voter having the opportunity to cast their ballot. And really, when we talk about elections, a lot of what we're talking about and a lot of controversy stems from where do you draw the center point in this triangle right here? Because these things are kind of pulling on each other. So example I like to give is this. In our election center, we recently installed cameras for the public to watch, right? You go on our website during the election, you can log in, you can watch. It's from 21 days prior to the start of the election all the way through certification. When we installed those cameras, we had to abide by the RCWs, right? Everything we do is in accordance with the law. And one of the laws says, or one of the things that the law says is you cannot disclose a ballot image or a ballot signature, right? And so if we're processing ballots on a table and theoretically somebody has a high-res camera they can zoom in on at home, that would be a violation of the law. So we purposely had to get low resolution cameras so you can see the process. You can see, hey, we've got ballots and what we're doing with those ballots, but there's no way for you to zoom in and actually capture an image, a legible image of those ballots themselves. So that's an example of security and transparency kind of pulling on each other there. This is what our calendar looks like this year. We are 4 out of 5 elections complete. So we had our February special. February and April elections are usually like your tax measures, like your school districts, your hospital districts. This year we had a unique one with KitCom in April. We also had a pretty unique election in March, which was the presidential primary that only happens once every 4 years. And what's the most unique thing about that is you have to declare a party on your ballot in order for your ballot to be counted. And then you have to vote in accordance with that party just for that one election. And that's a key misconception too, is that some people think, well, I voted one way in the primary or I didn't vote. Can I not vote in the presidential? Absolutely not true. It is just in that one election so that we can count that one ballot. And that is a big state, federal thing that has been through the courts with basically the states have to support the major political parties in the process that they choose to choose their candidates. So that's why we do that. We do filing week in May, first week of May. We have the August primary election, which is now everybody except the presidential candidates go through that. Just wrapped up that one. Well, really about a week and a half ago, but we had to do a statewide recount, which we just finished last week for public lands commissioner. So that one is now complete. And then we will be hitting it hard planning for the November general election here, like this week. For the elections process overview, so the elections process, this is a high level view of it. The voter registration is continuous. So some of you all probably remember, like when mail-in voting started, there was a cutoff. You had to get registered by I think it was 30 days prior to the election. That is not the case anymore. We have same-day voter registration. So up until 8 p.m. on election day, you can come into an election office and actually register. And the cutoff for that is 8 days. 8 days is where you have to come in person as opposed to turning in a form or doing it online. And that's so that you can actually, we can verify your identity in person. Voters, when they're registered, they go into VoteWatch, it's a statewide database. So that's why it's uncommon and very difficult for people to be registered twice. If you fill out 2 voter registration forms, it's going to, on that voter registration form, it's going to ask for your driver's license, it'll ask for your social, we'll look you up in the system. It's going to identify, hey, this is the same person here, and you will not be registered twice. So, so that is the voter registration database. It's managed on a daily basis. I have a person who is essentially 90% dedicated to voter registration, research, and follow-up. So that's registering new people, that's inactivating voters when we get their ballots mailed back that says that they moved and they have the yellow tags on them, or canceling those voters in the case we get notification that they've died, moved out of state, registered in another state, or any of those things. So that's just kind of a good reference. Is in a county of 30,000 registered voters, which is what we are, it takes about 1 full FTE full time to do that. And that's not including all the other election responsibilities. That's just voter registration. So that's what we do there. For the things that actually start when we're prepping for an election like we are right now, it starts on step 2 with election prep. So we're getting ready for November. So the things that we're going to do here is we're going to design the ballot, right? Which is basically all the candidates who have been approved to be on the ballot because they've won the primary, they filed, they paid their filing fee. For state and federal offices, the Secretary of State sends us a list and says, hey, these are the candidates. We put them on the ballot. We actually do that on our software downstairs. That ballot will then get sent off to the commercial printer with a list of registered voters that they're actually going to mail those ballots out to. We do a logic and accuracy test, which is essentially a pre-election audit of the election. So it's a mock-up ballot with the actual races. There's a matrix that you use to fill it out a certain way. You run it through the scanner and tabulator, and it's to basically make sure the scanner and tabulator is picking that those filled in results correctly. The ballots get printed. They get mailed out 21 days prior to the election. Ballots start coming in. We have ballot drop boxes, 9 of them throughout the county. You can also return your ballot free of postage via USPS. I personally do most of the ballot pickups just because we're a small staff. So I've got a gentleman who's a seasonal worker who retired Air Force, and we just go out together because there's got to be 2 of us. Yeah, we go pick up the ballots. It's probably one of the favorite things I do in my job. We have a beautiful county. So ballot processing, that's where I'm going to kind of dig in the next couple of slides is what happens when the ballots come into our office. So I'll get to that in a second. And then continue processing, random batch audit, and ultimately certification. So we'll go ahead and kind of see what that looks like. So when ballots come into our office, this is basically a floor map of what our election center looks like. Our election center is located in the basement of the Kittitas County Courthouse. The ballots all come in. they go to the table where it says 1 right there. And the first thing we do is we're going to batch the ballots, right? So if you have to audit and reconcile against like this in this last election, 12,460 or 78 ballots, it's going to be a lot, right? If you're just processing continuously. So we batch them into batches of like 200 to 300 is usually kind of where we try to do it. And they're always batched by, hey, the locations generally where they came in or the date. So once they're batched, they go to signature verification. What that looks like is every ballot envelope is individualized to the voter. It's got your name on it. It's got a barcode. And we scan that barcode, your signature will show up on the computer screen, and that signature is compared against the ballot envelope, right? And we have 3 trained staff members who do that in our office for every single ballot. You go to bigger counties, they use, usually it's called a Agilis machine, that's the brand, but it's essentially like an AI machine that will do that first read through because they're processing, sometimes, 700,000-800,000 ballots. Kittitas County is small enough where we're still doing this all by hand. It's a pretty effective system though. Combined experience for those 3 individuals is like 50 plus years. And they're very, very good at it. And so they will look at it once, they'll get somebody else to look at it. So one of the ladies will look at it, the other one will come take a look at it, and they'll basically say, yep, we agree the signature is not a match. Those ones get set aside. All the ones that are good though, move on in the process. And we'll go back to those in just a second. So the ones that move on go to opening and inspection. Basically what we're looking for there is anything that is going to cause an issue with it going through the scanner, ballot scanner. So the ballot envelopes are separated from the ballots. So now they become anonymous. The ballots, like I said, are inspected, making sure nobody spilled their spaghetti or their coffee on them. A lot of times we get commentary, right, which can actually also throw it off too, because sometimes commentary is, I hate all these people, but it's going across one of the boxes. Well, voter intent would tell us that person is not trying to cast a vote. So we're sorting for those kind of things, right? Another issue that's pretty timely, because it happened in the Public Lands Commissioner race, not in our county, but in a couple other, is if you don't follow the instructions and use silver ink or sometimes pencil, the scanner will not pick it up. It'll pick it up as an undervote, right? So those ones have to be pulled out because the system will say, hey, that's an undervote. That's not a vote for anybody, when really the voter intent would say, yes, it is a vote for somebody. Most pen ink works totally fine, but I know in a couple of counties, that was the reason that some of their results, their final results and their recount changed by 1 or 2 votes, was literally that reason right there. So we're opening and inspecting. 99% of the ballots continue on in the process. They go to the scanner. We usually start scanning about a week before the election. What the scanner does is it captures ballot images. There's no counting at this time. So it's literally just like a Canon scanner. And once you get past the fence up there, nothing is connected to the internet, right? So internet on the other side, on the left side, no internet on the right side. And there's actually 2 separate machines, the scanner and the tabulator, that are not connected to each other. So scanner is scanning all the ballots. It's scanning ballot images. There's a process called resolution. That's where if somebody picked somebody and then crossed them out or wrote in a candidate, we're going to resolve those ballots again in accordance with the rules of voter intent to say, yep, that's a vote right there. That's again a two-person process. 2 of our staff members who are trained to do that. But that's a small percentage of the ballots. Most of them just scan through and the images get captured. So that continues all the way up until we get to election day right here. So election day activities, we're going to continue to process all the way until 8 p.m. At 8 p.m., the ballot drop boxes, again, 9 of them across the county, are closed by designees in my office. I close the one at the courthouse, but usually it's like a police chief, mayors. We got a lot of good folks who help us out in closing those ballot drop boxes. They close them at 8 o'clock for us. We're not going to issue any more ballots. We're not going to accept any more ballots. And then we take the USB that has been capturing those images in the scanner for like the last week, and we're going to put it into the tabulation machine. We're going to hit the tabulate button. All those images get turned into 1s and 0s, and that auto sums up, and that's what produces your initial results right there. So those results are then, you take a hard copy and you take the USB, and you got to go back across the fence and you go over to a county laptop. You plug in the USB, you upload to the Secretary of State's office. You also email the scanned result. That's in case there was any sort of cyber attack on the network itself that would disrupt the results. I don't know what happened. There it goes right there. That you have the hard copy paper verification. So the state's going to match those up. And that's why it can take sometimes up to like 30 minutes for those results actually to make it on the website, because they're not going to let that post until they have verification that the paper results and the USB data matches. So so that data is uploaded. Again, 8:30 is what we tell people. Usually it's about 8:15, 8:20. So what we shoot for, that those results are live on our website. And certification, we do our final processing tabulation. So we do our last pickup of ballots. Like I go out to the ballot drop boxes on Monday morning, the day before the election, which means from Monday morning until Tuesday, 8 p.m., there's still ballots going in the drop boxes. The auditor deputies go out and close those ballot drop boxes. The ballots are in there overnight. So we go out one more time on Wednesday morning. We do a final pickup. Also, every ballot that was postmarked on time gets picked up and, or excuse me, not picked up, but delivered to our office via USPS. And those ballots are processed in accordance with the exact same process, and scanned and tabulated. And we post those results basically 48 hours after the election. So that's why in Kittitas County, and counties kind of do it differently, right? Everybody posts election night results, and then some counties post day after, some do 2 days after. But what it looks like for us is you get your first big batch on, which is usually about 60 to 70% of all ballots that are going to be cast on election day. And then you get about another 30% on that Thursday upload. And then it's kind of 5% after that for like people who live out of state and mail us things, or signature cure forms. That's the other one for folks who didn't make it through that first process. We sent them a cure form to say, hey, your signature didn't match. If they return that cure form to us and it does match the ballot signature or the ballot envelope signature, then we'll be able to accept those. So those are kind of the remaining ballots. And we usually upload those like the Friday before or the Monday before certification. And that'll close out our results. We do something called a random batch audit, which is where it's like a recount, except it's a small batch, right? So we take 3 batches of 3 of our batches, and they're selected randomly. We do give members of the public a chance to come and do that. We say, hey, if any observers want to be here, you can pull a number out of a hat, and then that batch will be set aside and essentially locked up. Those are scanned and tabulated separately, basically right prior to that Thursday upload of results. But before we even scan and tabulate them, we hand count them. So we hand count them. They're hand counted each batch is hand counted by 2 people. We tally up the results, and then we put them through the scanner and tabulator to make sure that those machine results match the hand count. And so I've never seen an RBA not match. And we just did essentially 100% RBA of the Public Lands Commissioner race and had absolutely 0 change from our machine results. So that was a pretty good vindication of our process. So that's the RBA. Canvassing board is myself, the chair of the county commissioners, and the prosecutor. We can delegate people to do it, especially if like we're on the ballot ourselves. We'll definitely want to do that. But like this year, it's myself, it's Greg Zempel and Brett Walksmith who are doing it. We get a final review of all rejected ballots, any ballots that came in late, but essentially we're verifying the whole process that the staff completed and then ultimately certifying those results. And that is the conclusion of the election. Here's some resources. Starting with state constitution, the RCW 29A, which covers elections, the WAX 434, Secretary of State website, our website, and then my contact info. If anybody has any questions.
Go ahead.
Yep. Brian, thank you for the presentation. Great information. Regarding that batch selection that you talked about as far as part of the certification, how many I guess votes are part of that batch? What's the quantity number?
It depends. So batches are about, like I said, 150, 300 kind of in there, and they're selected randomly. And so batches will be different. In this last election, it was 581 ballots out of 12,500 cast.
And if you get a good discrepancy in that batch, does that prompt additional batch?
Yeah, we would definitely, the canvassing board would be charged with figuring out like why it happened. Gotcha. And the most likely reason is going to be like what we saw with the hand count in other counties, like a color of ink that didn't get picked up, right? Or something that was a stray mark on a ballot that got picked up when clearly it wasn't voter intent. I haven't had that happen, but yeah, the canvassing board by law would have to investigate and figure out like why the machine read something differently. There's a 0%. It's funny because I oversee county budget and finance, and there's a margin of error. Not for money lost, but for money being like put in the wrong column. There's a margin of error, like state auditor's office. It's okay under a certain amount. You can just fix it with a journal entry. Not in elections. There's no margin of error.
Right.
So.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hey, Brian, I've got a quick question for you. On the date on the ballot, I've heard this bouncing around, so I want to, get it clarified. There's two dates essentially, right? There's the postmark if you're mailing it in, and then there's the hand date that you put on there manually, correct?
Who puts it on?
The voter.
The voter. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right. When they sign a date. So two dates. With our postal service around here, running out and dumping it in the post box at say 5 p.m. on election day, that will essentially be a no vote because we go by the postage stamp. That's correct.
You nailed it, Josh. Yeah. We get a lot of ballots that are postmarked for the day that the ballots were probably received in the home, like the Friday after they were mailed out, and they're postmarked for day after the election. So they probably sat on somebody's kitchen cabinet counter, and I've been there too. But yeah, it's getting your ballot in, however you decide to do it, USPS or ballot drop box, like being timely is essential. And around here with USPS, they're good. They've been really customer service oriented with us. We actually last November had a situation where their mail truck got delayed on a pickup route, and they were not going to make the transfer to where the processing center, I believe, is in Yakima. And so they would have been a whole bunch of ballots wouldn't have been postmarked in time. So they hand postmarked them for it. They called us up and said, hey, this is an issue. And then they hand postmarked them here at our post office so that those voters would get counted. So, but you're absolutely right. 5 p.m., 4 p.m. even. If it's day of election, I would just say put it in Dropbox to be safe.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Just a quick question,
ahead,
just anecdotally, rejected ballots, whether they're signatures that don't match or postmarks past the deadline. What kind of percentage of total are you seeing typically? Is it like 1/10 of 1% or less?
2 to 3.
2 to 3%.
2 to 3%, and I about
3%.
yeah,
Okay.
2
So
to
that's
3%.
a significant percentage.
Yeah, and actually, last year when I first started, it was 60% no signature at all. That was
6-0.
60. Yeah, 60% of what we rejected was just no signature. They just forgot to sign. So we actually redesigned our ballot envelope. We copied, there was a couple other counties that were doing this big box with arrows, sign here.
Sign here.
And we've reduced our rate. So now it's essentially flip flop. The percentage is about still the same. Signature, no match, maybe it's reduced a little bit. But we have more, I've seen more signature mismatch this year than I have no sig. So we were able to get after that metric.
Okay. Yeah. So ongoing voter education.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you. Good presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes, sir.
Actually, Mr. Coleman, you have to come to because they can't hear you. You have to introduce yourself and.
William Coleman, simple question. Regarding voter intent, when somebody uses a silver pen or a pencil and the ballot gets pulled, does it get counted by a human or is it completely rejected?
That's a good question. So it'll still get scanned through the machine. But what's going to happen is it's going to pull up on that machine and it's going to say, essentially, hey, this needs to be resolved. And then a human is going to make that decision and actually pick it. And if it would literally couldn't be read at all, a human would have to do that. But we haven't had that issue yet. It's always been stray marks or people writing stuff on ballots or crossing it out. But I do know in a couple of counties, they had that issue with silver pens. So just use black and blue and we'll be good.
So as far as the ballot box drop off or pick up at 8:30, I'm not sure if this happens. I'm sure that your staff is at those ballot box at 8:30. Is that how that happens?
So 8:00, and it's I personally do the one at the courthouse.
Right.
I have staff do the one at CWU.
Right.
And then I have deputized individuals of the auditor. They sign an oath and everything, who do the ones at the other ballot drop boxes. And they're the same people who do them every time. But it's like the mayor of South Cleellum, police chief out in Kittitas,
Right.
fire commissioner up in Easton. So they know what they're doing. But it can be tricky, right? So like I had 4 people this time who rolled up at 8:01 and had ballots in hand and closed the box. And I said, we all carry envelopes, right? Because people get upset. It's easier just to say, hey, I'll give these to the canvassing board, which is the right thing to do, right? And the canvassing board will make the decision, and the canvassing board is going to follow the law and say, hey, those are 8:01 ballots. But yeah, those are the folks that do it at 8 o'clock.
I was just wondering if that has happened, and you just answered it. So
Yep.
people-
Four folks rolled up at 8:01.
So that process, that last process you're describing, is that physically closing the boxes so more ballots can't be added, or are you emptying the boxes? Or
No,
both?
physically closing. The emptying comes
Later.
the next morning, right? So we make sure they're closed. And again, it's everything from the last pickup, which the courthouse ballot drop box is a little bit different because it fills up. We just upgraded the size of the courthouse one and then the one in Cleellum at the Upper County Courthouse. And I was not able to be on the pickup right before, I think it was the Monday morning pickup before the election, on this last election. So we sent out 2 of our staff members, and they said that box was darn near full. So we empty those ones a little bit more routinely, just to stay ahead of it. We definitely will for this November election. But all the rest of them are, it's like Monday morning, and then those ballots essentially fill up until 8 p.m. Ballot drop box is closed, emptied on Wednesday morning. So
I have a random question, and I know, I'm just curious, have you, in your experience, in your current position, have you had any incidents of vandalism to the drop boxes? Any attempts to vandalize the boxes? We hear a
No.
lot about how they're not safe, which I think is probably not true. But I'm wondering, have you actually experienced any of that?
Not here in Kittitas County. I can tell you in Mason County, February election, which was a fire commissioner, like it was either a recall or a race. There was something going on with it. Somebody chained up a ballot box, and they have all their ballot boxes on cameras, but they did it out of view of the camera. They chained up a ballot box to probably a pickup truck, were able to pull it out of the ground, and then realized, man, this thing is really heavy and I'm not going to drive down the road dragging a ballot box. So then they unhooked it and left it there on the ground.
Okay.
So it can happen, but yes, rare. So
We're not Mason County.
Anybody else from the audience here? Anybody online? And council? Thank you very much for that presentation.
awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7, citizen comment on non-agenda issues. Just to address, we did have an online applicant. However, they did not meet the rules the council has set. So that applicant will be eligible to comment on agenda items, but not on non-agenda items. And nobody has signed up. Does anybody wish to speak? Okay, one less script. Okay. Item 8A, page 171. This is a closed record hearing, and I've got a 7-page script to read. Sort of not kidding. Okay. The purpose of this closed record quasi judicial hearing is for the city council to consider pertinent facts, applicable law, and to make final decisions on whether to adopt resolution 2024-25, approving the application for preliminary plat approval of the Foster North subdivision, which was application P22059, submitted by Whipple Consulting Engineers, agent for the St. James Group LLC owners. Say that fast a bunch of times. Okay, the closed record hearing to consider the application for preliminary plat approval of the Foster North subdivision is now open, and we ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. This is a closed record hearing. There has already been an open record hearing before the hearings examiner where evidence was submitted and testimony received. Under state law, there can only be one open record public hearing allowed in this proceeding. This closed record hearing means the council bases its decision on the record developed by the public hearing previously held before the hearings examiner. Only city staff, the applicant's agents, property owners, or others who have already participated in the open record hearing on this matter through oral testimony received by the hearing examiner can participate in this closed record hearing. No new testimony or introduction of new materials or evidence is allowed. Comments or arguments must address only the record established during the previous open record hearing before the hearing examiner and must be directed to the issue of whether the hearing examiner's recommendation should or should not be adopted. If anyone presents comments that are not based on facts in the record, anyone may make an objection. If the objection is made, the person speaking will stop and the issue of the objection is resolved. The city clerk is making a recording of these proceedings. First, recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by persons attending remotely via Zoom. If you wish to participate by Zoom, raise your virtual hand or press *9 on the screen. If you are connected by telephone, and wait until I have recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you're invited to speak, begin by stating your name, address, and indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. One person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through council. City Council seeks to conduct this hearing in a manner that is fair and unbiased in both appearance and fact. Therefore, I would ask the council members for the following questions. Does any member of the council have an interest in this property or issue?
No.
I too will answer no. Will any member of the council obtain any financial benefit or suffer financial loss as a result of the outcome of this hearing?
No.
I too will answer no. Does any council member believe he or she cannot hear and consider this matter in a fair and objective manner?
No.
I too will answer no. Has any council member engaged in communication with opponents or proponents regarding the issue outside the public hearings process?
No.
Answer no. There's follow-up, but that's only if you answer yes. Is any council member employed by a party that has a direct or indirect interest in any property, the value of which would be affected by this decision?
No.
I too answer no. Will any council member be employed by a party for which the potential employment may be based as a result of this decision?
No.
I too will answer no. Is any council member a member of or involved in such associations or organizations, whether formal or informal, which takes a position on this application?
No.
I answer no as well. Is there anyone present at this time who objects to my participation or any council member's participations in these proceedings on appearance of fairness grounds? And for the record, nobody in the audience is indicating and nobody virtually. Okay, before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, there is. Okay, good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, Jeremy Johnston, Community Development Planning Manager. For you this evening is the Foster North preliminary plat. That's file number P22-059. Quick project description. The applicant is proposing 265 residential lots, ranging in size from 4,002 square feet to 21,355. The project is over 4 parcels, combining for a total of approximately 80.34 acres. The location is adjacent to the original Foster subdivision under application P21039, which has already been approved. It's north of Dry Creek Road and east of Reeser Creek Road, bisected by the Palouse to Cascade Trail. The zoning for the property is residential suburban. The residential suburban zone allows for a maximum of 6 dwelling units per acre. This application of 265 lots is just slightly over 3 dwelling units per acre. Critical areas report was submitted as part of the SEPA and critical areas review. The report indicated 1 stream and 4 wetlands on site. The previous SEPA and critical area determinations were conditioned to ensure that these areas remain protected as prescribed in Ellensburg City Code. The proposal includes 4 phases. Primary access will be through West Dry Creek Road and an extension of Helena intersecting at a roundabout at Buckaroo Street, which will be a new street, north of the Palouse to Cascade Trail. Road frontage improvements will be required as per public works standards. Access plans are contingent on Washington State Parks and BPA easement approval as conditioned, and I'll dig into that a little bit later here on another slide. The preliminary plat application was processed as a type 4 permit as prescribed in Ellensburg City Code. The review process also included 2 associated administrative permit determinations that I already mentioned. One was the SEPA determination, the other a critical areas determination, and both these were provided in your review materials. The application comment and hearing notices were observed throughout the process in accordance with Ellensburg City Code. and as indicated in your review materials. Duly noticed public open hearing took place on July 22nd, 2024 with the hearing examiner. And the hearing examiner recommended approval of the preliminary plat on July 31st, 2024 with the conditions outlined in your review materials. All comments have been provided. Community development received a variety of comments from both local and state agencies and the public. The proposed determination includes conditions to ensure consistency with all applicable regulations. Some of the notable conditions that were just a little bit uncommon that I wanted to bring up in case they sort of get ahead of this. It was a Washington State Parks condition. Specifically, that's condition number 7 in the hearing examiner's recommendation. The applicant has been attempting to I'll go back to the previous slide here where you can see the applicant is attempting to cross the Palouse to Cascade Trail here. We can see the trail indicated bisects the 4 different phases associated with this. It's turned out to be kind of a lengthy process, but they do need to have approval from state parks in order to utilize an access easement across there. So the applicant has been working on that. The hearing has continually been postponed. So we went ahead and moved this forward with a condition that speaks to the requirement that they will receive all approvals from Washington State Parks to initiate that crossing before final plat would be approved. And the other notable condition is a BPA condition, which is condition number 9 in your materials. Community development did not receive formal comments from BPA during the comment period for this, but there is a 100-foot BPA easement that runs, and again, I'll go back here again to show you this. That runs along the eastern portion of the property. It's kind of, you can see my cursor, it runs along there, which obviously they will be having to extend Helena. They're going to have to be crossing that easement. Our city utility department raised some concerns about this. We reached out to BPA. Obviously, nothing moves fast at the BPA level. So we've conditioned this to receive all approvals that they would be required to utilize that easement for access. And the only other sort of different thing is condition number 8 in your materials, which basically Old Reeser Creek Road can be seen well, partially on here. It runs north to south here and has been basically not utilized. The Reeser Creek Road itself runs just off the side of it. So our Public Works Department basically stated that they would be in support of a deferment of frontage improvements on that Old Reeser Creek Road, since most likely it will be vacated in the future and it's not going to be utilized. So those are the sort of weird, uncommon things that I wanted to bring to your attention in case there were questions about that. Staff is recommending approval of adoption of Resolution 2024-25, approving the Foster North preliminary plat as conditioned. That concludes my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
The deferments.
Hold on.
Sorry.
We do questions here in a few minutes. We're gonna move on.
Apologize.
Is the applicant's agent or applicant present, and does he or she have comments or arguments that would like to make at this time? Okay.
They're present, looks like
A
no.
bunch of conditions here. Okay. So, do any of the people who testified before or provided written comments to the hearing examiner have comments or arguments they would like to make at this time? Nobody online? Okay. Does staff have anything to add?
No, I do not.
So I would just pause a second. Can you add some information about condition 13?
Oh, yes. So it's basically it's an addition to ensure that road improvements are maintained before certificate of occupancies are issued. If a certificate of occupancy is issued prior to that, it does not negate the requirement for frontage improvement. So it's just a general standard to make sure that frontage improvements take place as prescribed.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything to add? Council, do you have any questions of staff?
I said.
Nope. He gets to go first.
Clarification, but go ahead.
Sure.
Head Delano.
All right. So the deferments, thank you for that. That actually kind of answered part of my question. Is there a sunset clause as far as the deferments, or is that in perpetuity for the improvements that would happen on on the road frontage?
I don't believe there is. It's a public works standard, so I'm not,
Okay.
I think the applicant would have to apply for a deferment and the director of public works would make that determination.
And then the property owner would be responsible for those modifications as part of that deferment, right?
Correct. I'll defer to the expert.
All right.
Yeah, Derek Mayo, city engineer. Yeah, those would be in perpetuity and they'd be recorded at the county
Okay, perfect.
and it can be called in by council.
Awesome. Okay.
Any other questions of staff or the applicant?
Just a quick question for staff, just that last condition number 13, I wasn't quite quick enough to pick that up. Was that the conditions of approval from the hearing examiner or was it
This was
somewhere else?
added after the hearing examiner's determination. So it was basically just, my understanding is that this was generally put on preliminary plat applications. It wasn't caught by our staff before that. So it was just basically, the point of it is to ensure that first, that certificate of occupancies of residential permits are not going to be issued prior to frontage improvements being put in place. And then there's also provision in there that says if for some reason a certificate of occupancy is issued, that doesn't negate the requirement of the frontage improvements to take place.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure where it's at. And then my other, which is just confirmation, the item about BPA, the easement. So the easement exists currently.
Right.
Over the property. They just have to work with BPA to conform with the conditions of the easement. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff or the applicant?
Does the proposal trigger a traffic impact study to intersections at like Reeser Creek or down the road by, I forgot the name of the elementary school that would require signalization?
So my understanding, the traffic impact analysis has already taken place.
Okay.
That was part of the review process.
All right. So no signalization is anticipated with this particular property?
So we point to the Public Works memo in here specifically to implement their standards. I don't recall reading that in there, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I could try to answer that. So yeah, they did a complete traffic impact analysis. It did not trigger level of service issues, so there's no signal requirements.
Okay.
Getting closer, but not.
Getting real close. Somebody's going to do it.
Any other questions? Okay, before closing the public hearing, I wish to advise everyone present that the council reserves the right to reopen this hearing for additional questions or take additional comments later tonight or at a continued hearing if needed. The public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution 2024-25 approving the Foster North preliminary plat and incorporating the hearing examiner's July 31, 2024 recommended findings of fact, conclusions of law, decision, and conditions of approval with an amendment to recommend condition 1 and adding condition number 13 as provided by staff.
Second.
Holy crap, that's the long one.
That was fast, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to read that. Okay. Okay. We have a motion and second to adopt resolution 2024-25.
You got it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move to new business item 11A. This is page 360 in our packet. This is potential approval of an extension of waste management contract for 2024 through 2029. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Ryan Liskey, Public Works and Utilities Director. Before you tonight, I'm recommending that the council authorize the city manager to sign the 5-year extension agreement with Waste Management that's before you. As you may or may not know, city administers a contract with a solid waste hauler, which is provided for in the city code. Current contract is with Waste Management. The contract was originally entered into, the current one we're operating under on October 1st, 2009, with a 10-year extension for 10 years, and it allowed for a 5-year extension upon mutual agreement. That took place. That 5-year extension took place in June of 2019, which takes us to today. That current contract expires at the end of September. Contract extension. Staff has been working with Waste Management for a number of months now to work on an extension of this contract that would go through September 30th of 2029. We've had lots of negotiations, discussions, meetings over time. And we've prepared the contract that's before you tonight for extension. In that, we have things such as additional rates for services that are not included in the existing contract, elimination of services not currently available, increased rates for residential services and roll-off container services, which include Kittitas County disposal fee increases, a modification to the annual rate adjustment allowed in the contract. This does continue to provide services and rates to residents in annexation areas. It also continues the spring and fall cleanup programs that we're in the process of scheduling right now for the fall cleanup program. The contract does change the annual rate increase from using CPI, which was fairly substantial a few years ago, to using the water sewer trash index that should decrease any volatility in those adjustments. There's also language that we have hopefully included in here that would assure one rate increase per year, because a lot of these rates get tied to tipping fees that come through the county transfer station. This contract also adds an additional month in November for weekly yard waste pickup. It also includes a kind of a requirement now that annually the city staff will meet with waste management to collaborate and discuss the services and things in there. It also adds by recommendation that kind of actually came through waste management, an annual recycling day. So we would work on, if this contract is approved, something in the upcoming year on a recycling day. Also, there's some information sharing that waste management will begin to start doing with their customers. City staff and waste management, like I said, have worked collaboratively together and to try to resolve a lot of the issues and things that have come up in the past. One thing the city has done, along with waste management, and I think it's live as of today, is add more information on our website that helps customers know that they will operate under a contract with us, but how to contact people, either contacts at the city of Ellensburg or get a link over to waste management, and how to contact them either through their 1-877 or whatever service that is, or how to get a hold of people locally. They do have an office over on Dollar Way, what those hours of operation are, how folks can pay bills, pay with a credit card over on Dollar Way. I learned that they have a service that you can go to Fred Meyer and pay your waste management bill there as well. They have expanded hours of operation at Fred Meyer. Did want to point out the list of recyclables. We included all of the exhibits that were in, I think it was Amendment 4. Those are also included in here, but the list of recyclables has not changed. In 2019, there was a fair amount of change that happened at that time. I believe the mayor pointed out earlier, waste management had a few textural changes offered over the weekend. That was included in the published agenda for today, but that's on your dais. There's the red line changes that really weren't very substantive, but helpful to the contract. Wanted to point that out, but they're in the contract that's before you tonight for final approval. One thing the city did do, we worked fairly closely with waste management, trying to figure out a way to add a low income component in there. We're very close. We would like to continue to do that in the coming year to try to figure out a way to make that happen. There's just it's just hard to close the loop on how to actually get a list of low income folks to waste management. We're going to continue to try to work on something that's waste management and the city both agree on to get a list of those customers to them. With that, there are two members of Waste Management that are here in the audience. Tyler McKay is from Wenatchee that I worked with a lot on development of the contract. And then Seth Pettigrew here is actually our local representative that runs the crews and is kind of responsible for everything you see that happens in our community. So with that, I am available with any questions you may have.
There will be an opportunity for, let's do public comment first. Anybody online? Okay. Council, any questions of staff or the agency representatives? Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to move for the authorization by the city manager to sign the 5-year extension with Waste Management.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the city manager's signature on the 5-year extension to the waste management contract. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed. That motion passes. Item 12A, city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Heidi Baron Sternaway, City Manager. You have on the dais a letter of support for Central Transit Consolidated Grant application to WashDOT, requesting council's approval of the mayor's signature on that letter to apply for grant funds.
I move approval
There you go.
of it.
Authorize the mayor's signature.
The mayor, is it the mayor's signature on letter to the Washington State Department of Transportation?
Second.
We have a motion second approving the mayor's signature on the DOT letter of support for the 2025-2027 consolidated grant program. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you. The majority of the information I have is contained in the manager's report. Just a reminder that we do have 2 public hearings scheduled for the next meeting. One is a land use application, and the other one is the public hearing for the dissolution of the Ellensburg Business Development Authority. We've been working with Centrifuge and the Chamber of Commerce, and they are working on a merger that would be effective after the EBDA is dissolved. And so public hearing is required for that. It's one of the steps in the process, and there are a lot of other steps that we're taking along with that. So we'll discuss that more at the meeting next time. We have applications due for the Poet Laureate program and also lodging tax, and those are actually due to the county. Lodging tax, we work with the county on the consolidated program. September 20th is a magic date for that. Unity Park ribbon cutting and celebration on October 5th. So mark your calendars. That will be a fun day. And we hope that all the council can be there that day. We did close the applications for all of the community grants and the city council sponsored grants. And so one of the items I was going to ask you all to do is to select a subcommittee of council to actually review. And I believe we received 7 applications by the deadline in August 31st. So we're looking for 3 members of council that would be willing to meet outside the meeting in a subcommittee to do the selection and make the recommendation for funding.
Anybody want to volunteer? Because Nancy and Sarah are volunteering.
Well, this Nancy would volunteer too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good.
If you can corral the other 2, that's fine. It sounds good. If they reject that.
I show decree.
If they reject your decree, then I would fill in for one of them because I've done it before too.
So it's going to be the women. Is that what we're
There
saying?
you go. That works.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I heard Councilmember Lilquist, Councilmember Goodloe, and Councilmember Beauchamp, and Councilmember Miller is an alternate. Excellent. Okay. And then finally, one of the additions that we did make is to schedule an executive session for tonight following your reports. And that's per RCW 42.30.110, section 1, subsection I. And we recommend 10 minutes. There will not be action after that.
Okay. Councilmember Goodloe.
A couple of updates. Mr. Mayor, I did attend the behavioral health court graduation and it was great. It was very inspiring and the folks involved with that program are doing a superb job. I did attend the UAC meeting, in the August meeting. We had a pretty extensive discussion of the HERE grant program, which we approved tonight on the consent agenda. And I'm very excited about that program for our community. Hope we can get the word out to people that that opportunity is there. If they would like to contribute to decreasing the carbon footprint of the city, they can contact Hope Source. They can contact city also to get information about that. DEI Commission met, and we are anticipating exciting time on Friday, the 13th, as we meet in retreat to prepare for the 2025 year. And I continue to work with the Homeless Affordable Housing Committee 5-year plan group for the rewrite of the county plans.
Miller.
Pretty quiet end of the month, PTAC meeting. We saw the letter on the dais tonight with the grant season. So it's a lot of work for staff. And I think we had some conversations in our last meeting. The good news is that the city, Ryan's crew, Public Works, Betsy and Transit, we expended, my understanding is we expended all the capital dollars through prior grants that we had available to us. So they knocked out a lot of transit related improvements this summer. Small projects, a lot of small improvements, but excellent work on that. So puts us, I think, in a good place when we go in and ask the WashDOT folks for more money. And then the only other official business that I had recently is I had the opportunity, and I took the opportunity to walk in the parade on Saturday alongside one of our buses. And that was the most fun ever because I got to hand out little tiny Frisbees to people everywhere. And it was a great, I just, it's funny, perspective wise, I've watched the parades over the years, but this is the first time I've actually had a chance to walk through or participate as a participant, and the perspective is completely different. It was great. I thought the turnout was great. The weather was great. I think it was just, it was a good time for all. So that's all I got.
Councilmember Palmer.
Unfortunately, I missed the Law and Justice Council meeting, and we have Affordable Housing Commission tomorrow, and we have the Steer I-90 in next week. So I've got no additional updates, but to what Dave was talking about, very proud of our little community and a lot of events. August and September is a fun time. Night Out was awesome, seeing it turn out there. Rib Fest downtown the other weekend was fantastic, and so was the rodeo. And it was also my first time participating, watching the parade on Saturday morning. It was a hard conflict because I'm a big football guy, so that was hard to set that aside to be at the parade, but it was worth it. It was nice. So that was it.
Councilmember Thompson.
Cool. Wyatt Parks is going to get back on its regular meeting schedule with the appointments we made today. So that would be good to get that back and going. Landmarks was supposed to be tonight, but we double booked the room. So we had to push that off for another night. One thing I did want to kind of say was, since I've started, I've made it a habit of doing ride-alongs with EPD, and I think it's been a tremendous source of information for me. And I just did one on Friday night. I wanted to see how EPD handled a huge event in terms of the fair and the rodeo. And one, it's impressive for the size of the force that we have, how well everybody works together, from EPD to Central to the deputies, the sheriff's department. The theme of the night was alcohol. We responded to a couple of different DUIs up at the Washington State Patrol where they do the breath testing. There was a line, unfortunately. And by the time I had gotten off, and I was only on shift with them for about 4 hours, but I think we were up to like at least 10 reported DUIs, which you can imagine with the limited resources we have, there's that many more that just were never caught. Fortunately, I didn't see anything in terms of injury to others or property, but it was certainly there. One gal that we pulled over was doing 35 and a 20 and going down the center lane, and was 2 times over the legal limit. So the amount of restraint that was showed in the stop and the courtesy to the individual, I'm always amazed at how well EPD handles themselves, and you really see it when you're out there stop after stop. It's incredible the amount of restraint. So big kudos to them. Going to keep doing it. Like I said, I've gained so much from it. It certainly has helped me form my opinion on things as recently as the flock camera system, and seeing that we've got a police department that I think is going to use it effectively, but going to do so in a way that's respectful to our citizens. And so I think they're going to be the right agency to strike that blend, and we'll just watch it as it goes. But other than that, that's what I got.
So I'm going to have a long list today. We talked a little bit earlier about traffic safety, and you brought up the issue of alcohol. And I just kind of want to put this out there because we've focused most recently on opioids, and before that it was access to prescription drugs, and the perception and legalization of marijuana, and all of those issues, and their emotional issues, and people's perception is skewed by the reality of the impacts to those things. And I'm telling you, inside Kittitas County, or at least inside the 2/3 of Kittitas County that we serve from an EMS perspective, it's 10-1 for alcohol for everything else.
Yeah.
And the number of people who die as a result of alcohol misuse or abuse far exceeds the totals for the accidental opioid deaths and stuff like that. And so we just need to remember to keep that in perspective, that, it is a drug and alcohol problem in the community. And, when you say that, yeah, that's a cause of a lot of the serious accidents that occur in our county, and disproportionately the fatalities that occur in our community on the road system. And speaking of which, we were talking about road systems, and this isn't in the city of Ellensburg, but I can think of 12 fatalities that have occurred on I-82 from the I-90 intersection to before the military exit, southbound or eastbound. That is by far the number one, per mile fatality. And obviously we had one over the weekend that was just horrific.
Yeah.
And I went to one a month before that had almost the exact same set of circumstances. And so, it's that hill. Everybody, forgets the trucks go slow, and that's just the way it goes. And they're in a race and they don't pay attention, and bad things happen. On a more positive note, I'm going to ask a question, and this may be something that we build into next year's The Coffee with Council. It feels like we've sort of peaked, and maybe it's the time of year, but we've had a big tail off trailing in terms of the attendance. And I'm almost wondering if maybe we could mix that up a little bit, and maybe mix in every other month a couple of council members go to one of the civic meetings or one of the larger meetings in the community. And obviously they have to invite us in, but the point is we're interacting with the public, and again, no offense, because they're showing up, but not the same 3 people in the public.
Yeah.
And so that's just something to think about, that we maybe get a little creative and try to increase that interaction piece. I sat through the rodeo, and just as kind of an FYI leading into this, it's very likely that I will be transitioning to the director of KitCom over the next couple of months. And so this was probably my last rodeo from a fire and EMS perspective. I got to watch fair and rodeo boards and all the volunteers that put that on. It is thousands of hours of work. If you want a volunteer job, that takes hundreds of hours in the month of August, get that one. So it's amazing what they do with how little they do, they put together. And it's just an amazing event. And then again, I will have an excused absence at the next meeting, and I did attend the Hope Source meeting, and Hope Source is looking at a different service model in addition to sort of the housing and energy focus that they have now and some veterans programs. They're talking about sort of moving to KCHN's sort of wraparound services and having sort of a navigator in the system. And I'm on both boards and strongly encourage Hope Source to make sure that we're not duplicating services, but that can really pay off and to tie into the health network's success. So we are going to go into an executive session for 10 minutes. Don't expect any decision at the end, and the subject is
Potential litigation.
potential litigation. We will come out and we will adjourn, but that will be the highlight of the night.
45 seconds.
60 seconds.
Yeah.
Third time.
Yeah, I gotta catch.
Starting now.
I just told you.
Time. That's a quick 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think David's still coming.
Do the interviewing people outside the movie theater if you can.
We need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, with a couple more people in the room. Okay, there you go.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.